26th, 2025. It is, I don't know, around 7 p.m. I'm going for a little walk. It has been a while since I posted to the local Future channel. And I just thought I would share a few thoughts because things are interesting in the world. Interesting generally in a bad way, but still interesting from the perspective of history and living through history. One of the things I tend to pay attention to is what's going on with finance, economics, money. There are a lot of people that pay attention to that, of course, because it's all around us all the time. I would suggest you put this on 2x speed because I'll probably talk slowly and it would make more sense if you turned up the speed on this. So it appears, based on the people who seem to know what's going on, not based on me, that we have bubbles, economic bubbles, that are like overlapping each other right now. And in particular, there is a housing bubble where the houses are like really expensive, and the houses have been going up, and they're so expensive that people can't really afford them. Plus the interest rates are high, so the monthly payments are high, and so it's really difficult for people to get into new homes. And then there's other people who manage to refinance or buy the house, in the US at least, when the interest rates were only 3%. So their monthly payment's not particularly high, but in many parts of the country, the sale price of the houses are not really selling. Like, one of the people I know has a house in Florida, and the value of their house, according to Zillow, has dropped like 10-20% in the last year or two. So imagine some of the people in Florida, if they had bought in to the house with the 3% interest or even the 6% interest, they're probably underwater. The ones with the 3% interest rate probably have a nice, reasonable payment, as long as they don't need to move. It's fine. But the ones with the 6% interest rate, it's just tough, right? So that's going on. And the thing that impacts the most is that's one of the places that money comes from, right? When someone goes to make a mortgage with the bank or credit union, that money is created, that credit is created along with the debt at the same time. And that credit that's created goes to the seller. Then they have that money to spend on whatever, probably paying off some debts and buying some stuff as well. But that's one of the two major places that money comes from, is bank created money. Now, it's not just from houses, of course. It could be from businesses, commercial businesses, like multi-family apartment buildings. It could be from auto loans, credit card loans, or just credit card payments, buy now, pay laters, payday loans. I mean, there's all sorts of places where debt is created at the same time as the credit is created. The credit is spent into the economy as money, and the debt, of course, creates a flow of payments back in the direction of the banks. But that slowed. One of the economists I pay the most attention to, his name is Steve Keen. He wrote a book called Debunking Economics, and he talks about how when the credit creation rate, like the second derivative, the rate that it's changing changes, then that can lead to, a lot of issues with the economy moving into like a recession and a lot of job losses as a result of that. The other place money comes from is, of course, from the federal government. And there's two major ways that money comes out of the federal government. One is payments, like Social Security payments and Medicare payments and interest on bonds and all those sorts of things. Apparently, the federal government pays each year somewhere around $7 trillion, which is more than they take in taxes. You can think of the taxes as being like erasing that money once the federal government receives the money. It's kind of like that money gets erased, but it's being spent back into the economy. So it's something like 5 trillion is being collected in taxes and 7 trillion is being paid. So the money keeps going. But the amount of money that's being spent has changed a lot because of all the changes in Washington, D.C. So instead of so many federal employees getting the money is going to new federal employees, like the new immigration and customs enforcement employees who are being hired right now. And right now we're in the middle of a government shutdown, one of the longest government shutdowns that has ever happened in the U.S. And so people are not getting paid right now. We're coming up on what should be a paycheck on Friday, I think. And so we have all sorts of government employees who've been either laid off or and not allowed to come to work, or kind of even worse, that they're working but they're not being paid. I'm thinking of like Transportation and Security Administration agents and the flight controllers, and I'm sure there's many other ones that people know about. Maybe the National Parks employees, if they're still employed, some of them. So of course those people have to batten down the hatches, probably don't have a lot of money to spend. The statistic that came out recently is that like 50 to 60% of, I don't know if it was individuals in the US or households, really don't have any savings. So some are living paycheck to paycheck. As soon as they get their paycheck, it's already spent. And then others who are in debt are like rolling the debt over just so they can pay their bills and get food and stay in their place. There's several YouTube channels that are kind of informative on this. They'll like take TikTok videos where people are saying how difficult it is right now, and they'll kind of compile them together. Those are quite interesting to hear the what's going on in different places. But anyway, so we have less money, less spending from debt, from the creation of debt, from banks and individuals, corporations, everybody. So that's less spending there. There's also appears to be less spending federally, or at least it's changed a lot where the federal spending is coming from. So overall, there's going to be less earnings for people as wages, which means that they're going to have less spending, and they're also going to be battening down the hatches. And that seems to be what's happening right now. Very reminiscent of what happened in many recessions, including like 2008, 2009, which for me doesn't really seem that long ago. For younger people, it might be like ancient history. So that's going on. Apparently there's this thing called the non-depository institutions, or shadow banking, which have like kind of lied about what assets they have on the one hand, and they've also, the value of a lot of things like apartment buildings and commercial buildings has fallen because they anticipated they were able to get a certain amount of rent, but they're not actually getting that rent. And the interest rates are going to go up. And a lot of these businesses, the loans were short term, like 5 years-ish, and so they have to reset. But are the banks going to want to match that interest rate? Probably not. So there's that going on. So there's a banking crisis that's unrealized. There's also a housing crisis that's unrealized. And so there's also the stock market bubble. So right now the stock market is going up, up, up. That is an issue for anybody that has stocks. Well, it's good in the moment, but if it's a bubble and that means that the values of the stocks are going to go down, that would impact people's IRAs and 401ks and investment accounts, and that's a big deal, right? Because during 2008, 2009, when it went down, people realized that they couldn't leave their jobs. They couldn't retire when they wanted to retire. That led to a lot less jobs being available for people who were entering the workforce in their 20s or even trying to change jobs when they were later in their life. So a lot of things going on. It's interesting to try to pay attention to these things and what the bigger picture are. Who are the players that are influencing this? But that's a little bit of a summary about where we're at this point, 26th of October 2025. So if you have any insights about what is going on overall, what you're seeing, feel free to add that to the comments. I appreciate you watching if you want to watch, and I hope things are good for you. Take care.